Why, hello there, I'm Professor Joel, and welcome to another episode of Planet Scooby Reviews. Today we are covering The Spooky Fog, which is the 9th episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies. This episode originally aired on November 4th, 1972, and in this episode we see the gang driving into the town of Juneberry, where they encounter a spooky fog that is scaring the local town people away. We also find out that cattle are being rustled away as well, so this town has some problems. In this episode, Don Knotts plays himself. He is the guest star, and he's really just playing a take on his classic deputy character from the show called The Andy Griffith Show, and on that show he was called Barney Fife. That was one of his breakout roles, or one of the roles he's most notable for. Don Knotts, of course, starred in many classic movies before then, but Barney Fife is what I think really made him popular. We even get a sheriff named Dandy Griffith, which is a take on the Andy Griffith name. And the Andy Griffith Show took place in Mayberry, and here the town is called Juneberry. So, yeah, a lot of writing went into parallel the Andy Griffith Show, which was a popular show before this. The Andy Griffith Show was popular in the 60s, and it ran from 1960 to 1968. Don Knotts would later go on to star in Three's Company, which is my favorite role of his, as he plays this elderly swinger that puts Austin Powers to shame. I never really got into the Andy Griffith Show. It was before my time. It was never really on TV when I was home either, like in reruns. If I stayed home sick, I'd sometimes watch it, but I never really got into it. I always planned to, but it's not available on streaming, I don't think, at the moment. So I haven't really watched it. I know a young Ron Howard starred on it, and it's really popular with a lot of people. It's also in black and white, and I have no issue with black and white. I always loved Leave It to Beaver. Anyway, despite my love of Don Knotts, is this episode any good? Let's find out. The episode begins with the gang driving through a rural desert landscape. The girls are hungry. However, Scooby and Shaggy have eaten the last of their food. Freddy sees a sign for a town called Juneberry, so they stop there to eat. The population sign is unusual as the population numbers are going down and down.
Guess we better stop to eat in this next town.
Welcome to Juneberry.
Inside the town, there's an epic, thick pea soup-style fog, making it difficult for Freddy to drive. The gang leave the town and the fog clears up. They don't get too far as they are pulled over by a police officer.
Do you think he's after us?
I guess I better pull over.
The police officer turns out to be none other than Don Knotts.
All right, son, where's the fire? I got you dead to rights, partner. Clocked you doing 90 miles an hour in a 25-mile zone.
You're Don Knotts, aren't you?
It's me.
You're even better looking in person.
Just doing my job.
They don't recognize Don Knotts from the earlier episode, and this is again the first time they've met him. So Don has pulled them over for speeding, but it turns out he had an error with his speedometer. The gang mention they are hungry, so Don decides to escort them back to Juneberry.
I've got just the ticket. Town of Juneberry. Greatest hotels and restaurants this side of Paris. You got nothing to be afraid of as long as I'm protecting you.
Where he can check out this spooky fog. In Juneberry, the fog has lifted and the gang explore the town. As they pull up, they see that another family is moving out.
Well, this is it.
We're getting out of this spooky town once and for all.
This is Sheriff Dandy Griffith.
Well, another family leaving Juneberry. Can't blame them, though.
Yeah, that's Gene Halltree, the rancher.
Now there's trouble.
Sheriff, when are you gonna do something about all the cattle rustling that's been going on around here?
There, in town, they also meet Sheriff Dandy Griffith and Gene Halltree, the rancher. Gene complains to the sheriff that there's too much cattle rustling going on. The gang spend the night at the town jail, and Don Knotts cooks for everyone. As the gang sleep, they hear a cackle, and a horseshoe with a note attached is tossed at Scooby.
What happened?
Hey, what happened?
Get out of town before it's too late.
The note says, "Get out of town before it is too late." The gang wake Don up, and Velma suspects it's Sheriff Dandy who's tossed the horseshoe. The gang scheme to make Sheriff Dandy laugh to see if his laugh matches the cackle they heard before, but their attempts fail. Sheriff Dandy is not a jolly fellow. The fog hits the town once more, making everything dark.
Look out! It's the red-eyed vulture!
Freddy and Velma step out to investigate, and they hear a ghostly noise once more. Outside, they spot some tire tracks, so they rustle up the rest of the gang and follow them. The tire tracks end at a crushed rock road, so they lose sight of the tracks, and that crushed rock road leads to Boot Hill Cemetery. Boot Hill is the spot where the Boot Hill gang were hung and buried. At the cemetery, the gang split up, with Freddy and Velma going one way, Daphne and Scooby going another, and Shaggy and Dawn heading off in another direction. Lots of fake scares and shenanigans happen until the gang reunite and a skeleton figure approaches the gang. Cowering from the skeleton man, Scooby triggers a trap which opens up an access point in the mountain. Freddy and the girls take chase after the skeleton man, and Dawn, Shaggy, and Scooby encounter several more apparitions.
It's the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow.
Maybe they want ours.
The gang reunite once more and are forced to head into a tunnel after the drawbridge they walked across is raised. Once again, they split up and we get more scenes of ghosts and hijinks. Freddy and the girls even come across a brontosaurus, which turns out to be an illusion done with projectors, mirrors, and sound equipment.
It's a giant brontosaurus!
As they forgot their flashlights, most of these cave scenes are incredibly dark and it's hard to see what's going on, even on my Blu-ray copy. For one last time, the gang reunite and they come across the skeleton man at his control panel.
Look!
It's the skeleton.
He must be the mastermind behind all the trouble.
The skeleton is getting away.
Dawn sneezes, scaring the skeleton man off, so we get a long chase scene until the gang finally spot him with the other skeleton men stealing cattle.
Look! There's your cattle rustlers!
They've been running the stolen cattle through the town on trucks.
Using that spooky fog to cover their operation.
Freddy and Velma figure out the fog was a way to hide their trucks as they drove off with the cattle. Freddy comes up with a plan and they capture all the rustlers. Unmasking the main skeleton man, it turns out to be Gene Hawtrey, the local rancher.
Gene Hawtrey!
And I could have gotten away with it if it weren't for you people.
You're coming with me, Halltree.
With another mystery solved, the gang head off on their next adventure. I give this episode a 5.5 out of 10. It's not like this was a bad episode, it's just not my thing. It was too funny, and if you've been watching my reviews by now, you know I like spooky over funny. This wasn't spooky at all. The main villain was a guy in a Halloween bodysuit thing, and yeah, he just looked like a kid trick-or-treating, basically. Not that spooky. They had some spooky ghosts, but they didn't really do anything with it. They had that fantastic, horse and buggy ghost with the skeleton horses and the skeleton driver. And yeah, you just get like a fleeting glimpse of it. And the whole logic behind it was cool, that they were projections that they could project onto the fog. But yeah, they didn't really go much with it, even though those ghosts were super creepy. I wish, they came about in later episodes. Just seemed like wasted resources. Overall though, I give it a 5.5, and I know this could be someone's favorite, just not mine. Don Knotts is fine. If you're a Don Knotts fan, you'll probably like this. I like the other Don Knotts episode way better. It's way more quirkier, way more original, way more entertaining. This is just kind of generic rubbish in a sense. A lot of padding, a lot of filler. You could tell they're just filling time in a lot of scenes, especially the scene where they have to make the sheriff laugh. That's like 5 minutes I'll never get back of my life, and I don't regret it because I enjoy reviewing these episodes, but I don't think I'll ever watch this episode again. Other things I liked, I mentioned I liked Don Knotts. I liked how Shaggy and Don Knotts split up, and I thought that was cool because they are very similar people. They're both awkward and full of anxiety, and I thought that was cool. I liked Daphne and Scooby splitting up because that rarely happens, in these episodes. It's usually Shaggy and Scooby. I liked the town, how people were leaving, and the cattle rustler plot. But again, just this episode was too long. If it was 22 minutes versus 44 minutes, I think this would have been a tighter episode. I just don't, I don't love these 44-minute episodes in most instances. Sometimes more is not better. And this episode is a case of that. Once again, thank you for watching all my episodes, views, and giving me views and subscribes and sharing these episodes and all that. My episode count viewership keeps going up and up, and I appreciate that. I put a lot of time and effort into this, about 10 hours per episode. So, yeah, I appreciate that people are enjoying what I'm doing. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be as fun. So thank you for that. And until next week, when I will be reviewing The Ghost of the Red Baron, which stars the Three Stooges, stay spooky.
It's a giant brontosaurus.
It's the headless horseman of Sleepy Hollow.
Maybe they want ours.
What happened?
Look out! It's the red-eyed vulture. Look,
It's the skeleton.
he must be the mastermind behind all the trouble.
The skeleton is getting away.